welcome everyone to this session. I've got a wonderful guest with me, Dr. Margaret Paul, and some of you in my community for a long time will remember her beautiful presence with us a couple of years ago. I can't believe how this time has flown by. So welcome and thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, wonderful. And we were having a little giggle before, and I said to you, it's been 2.5 years, and you don't look a second older than when I saw you last time. So, something about your beautiful techniques is very youthful and lifeward, which is awesome. So, I'm going to share a little bit with people about who you are for those of you that are new to the community so they understand who you are. So, Dr. Margaret is a relationship expert with a PhD in psychology and over 50 years of teaching expertise in this space she's going to share with us about today. So, please listen closely. She's the co creator of the well known and powerful inner bonding self healing process, and she's been featured in lots of places on TV and radio, including with Oprah. So, without further ado, we're going to talk today about deepening, strengthening our self love and our spiritual connection, and what might prevent us from being able to effectively do that. What is down in the shadows and the roots and in the spaces we cannot see that leave people landed where I don't even know how to love myself or what self love is. And there's a whole lot of flowing consequences for that too, right? Around loneliness and abandonment and shame and all sorts of things. So could you just go for gold and share with us whatever's there for you about that topic to get us started?
Yeah, most people know by now that we're supposed to love ourselves, but most people have no idea what that means. Lots of times when I ask my clients, "Are you loving yourself?" "Oh, yeah, I get my nails done and I get in my naps and I take a warm bath." And they just have no idea what it really means to love ourselves on the emotional level, on the physical level, and on many other levels. And so inner bonding is a process that really teaches us to do that. And unfortunately, we have so few role models for what it really means to love ourselves. I didn't have any at all. Most people don't. And so inner bonding is an emotional and physical and spiritual process, because without our spiritual connection, we don't have anywhere to go for what it means to truly love ourselves in any given moment. And so, a major part of inner bonding is learning to have easy access to our higher source of guidance, which I think we're going to talk a lot more about today.
Wow, we don't have anywhere to go without our spiritual connection when we're trying to learn to love ourselves.
Yeah, where do we
Yes,
go? Where do we
yes,
go? We go to
yes.
books, we go to movies, we
Mhm.
go to television, we go to our parents, we look around. I mean, where do we go? And so when we first started developing inner bonding after Spirit brought us these 6 steps, we realized that having that spiritual connection is absolutely essential for developing what we call the loving adult, who is capable of taking loving care of ourselves and capable of accessing our higher guidance.
Which are the things that we just don't get taught growing up, right? How to take proper
Yeah,
care of ourselves. If we're lucky, we get some how to cook, how to clean, how to get a job. Maybe if we're lucky, how to manage our money, but
that's
not a
right.
lot about psychological, emotional, or spiritual connection. And actually, even having been raised in a church environment, and I am spiritual, no longer do I consider myself religious. Even in that environment,
No,
there was zero talk, zero Zaponata, nothing talk about how to take good care of yourself. It was still externally focused on an external point of where we
that's
need to
right,
put
that's
our
right.
attention. Okay, okay.
That's right.
So can you talk to us about what you see when there is a lack of self-love because there's no understanding of what that really means, and there is a absence of the spiritual connection? What is the flowing consequence of that in people's lives in terms of the effects they could be experiencing?
Yeah, so, of course, people are experiencing a lot of anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, aloneness, emptiness, anger, jealousy, and relationship problems and addictions. There's so many there's so many painful things that people are going through because, and that's the result of self-abandonment. There, we teach that there's two kinds of feelings. There's the feelings we cause by abandoning ourselves, and then there's the feelings of life, such as people being mean to us or bad things happening in the world. And so we end up feeling the loneliness or the grief or the heartbreak or the helplessness over others. And we have to learn to manage those feelings with love, because when we were young and we felt those feelings, everybody had experiences that left us being lonely or heartbroken or, really scared and full of sorrow. We didn't know how to handle those feelings. And so we learn to develop what we call an inner body, the wounded self, the ego wounded self, that's filled with fears and filled with false beliefs, and learn so many ways to abandon ourselves. For example, we learn to judge ourselves. I was judged a lot. I learned to judge myself. That's a form of self-abandonment. I learned to stay up in my head and not be in my body where my feelings are because I couldn't handle my feelings. That's a form of self-abandonment. I learned a whole lot of addictions. I was food addicted and anger addicted and all kinds of addicted to not feel my pain because I didn't know what to do with it. And I was taught, like so many are, to make others responsible for my feelings. If you get married and you have your kids and whatever, then other people will make you feel worthy and make you feel whole and make you feel complete. This is like having a child and giving the child away to somebody. We're giving away our soul, our inner child. This is the feeling part of us, and we're making others responsible for that. And so these are all ways of abandoning ourselves that then lead to the anxiety and depression and guilt and shame and emptiness and all those painful feelings. Then people, take drugs or are involved in a whole lot of other addictions to avoid those feelings, and it's just circular. So when you learn to
Mm.
love yourself, then you're not causing that. You're not abandoning yourself in those ways. You're bringing love into yourself. You're learning to attend to your feelings. Your feelings have so much. Our feelings are information, mostly about whether we're loving ourselves or abandoning ourselves, and information about what's happening with another person or a situation that we need to attend to. But I learned that I didn't learn that my feelings had information for me. I was not allowed my feelings. I had a narcissistic mother. She was allowed hers. I was not allowed mine. And so I learned, oh, okay, I got to be involved. I got to be tuned into everybody else's feelings, but I'm not allowed mine. And so it took me a while to learn to get from my head, mind focus, into my body with my feelings and learn to get the information, take responsibility for my feelings. This is what loving ourselves is about. Learning to learn from our feelings, learning to take responsibility for what we're doing to cause all this pain, and responsibility for those very painful feelings of life, even if they're caused by others. Nobody's going to do it for us. It's up to us.
Mm. Wow. And the thing about taking responsibility is, and I'm sure you've heard this many a time, I am not responsible for those feelings. My mother's responsible for those feelings, or my father is, or the teacher that I went to, that did this to me at school is responsible, or my ex is responsible for these feelings. So it's not really until we learn that we have to take responsibility for the presence of the feelings and attend to them that we're able to kind of get any traction, right? Because otherwise we're in victim mindset, and we're holding.
Right.
Sometimes I think people are holding on to the feelings. It's like, I need these feelings to justify I've been hurt, and I don't want to let anyone off the hook, so
Yes.
I'm gonna hold on. So do you find most
Yeah.
of the people that work with you have already worked through that and are ready to take responsibility, or is part of the work helping them to loosen up the grip around that?
Yeah, they come to me after many, many years of searching, and many of them 20 years of therapy, and they still have not learned what it means to take responsibility for their own feelings. Even though we were hurt, most of us were hurt by our parents or others. What happened is that they hurt us from their ego wounded selves, and we absorbed their ego wounded selves into our wounded self. And so we're re-traumatizing ourselves every time we treat ourselves the ways that they treated us. And this is, I work with people who have very deep trauma, who are continuing to re-traumatize themselves by what they say to themselves, by how they judge themselves, how they ignore themselves, all the ways they numb out and blame others. And this keeps them, yes, victimized. And so, yeah, it may have been your mother or your father or who else, but they're not going to do anything today. They're, they're not even going to admit, most of them, what they did, and they're certainly not going to do anything. Now, I have had clients who did go to their parents and say, well, you did this or that, and their parents were admitted and were so sorry and became loving. And you know what? It didn't change anything because they were still treating themselves in ways that re-traumatize themselves. And so other people can love us and apologize and whatever, but if we're abandoning ourselves, we're re-traumatizing ourselves. Doesn't make any difference at all. We actually can't take in others' love when we're abandoning ourselves. So it's so important for us to learn to love ourselves, and that's what the 6 steps of inner bonding are all about.
Okay, and I want to talk about those in a moment, but this is super fascinating because there's something you said there when you pointed to you were doing to yourself, for example, in the parental situation where there's been traumatized person from the way the parent has treated them, is that when you realize you're doing to yourself what they did to you, that's shocking.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
It's
to
absolutely shocking.
realize, oh, they did that and I've been in pain, but the current pain is me redoing it to myself.
That's right.
That's
That's
very,
right.
very powerful. And then also what I'm hearing is, I really love, okay, this is a great question. I think this is a great question. Can you give us other descriptions for self-love that are not the word self-love, given the word self-love is so confusing to people? Like, I loved that you said attending to your feelings, not necessarily just getting your nails done. That's lovely for physical self-care, but self-love. Is there any other way you would describe it without those words that would help people to kind of get a handle on it? The attending to your feelings is very clear.
Yeah. So, it's very much like what a good parent would do with a child. Child comes crying. So we can feel when we're in our body, we can feel our pain. We open to learning. This is the inner bonding process. There's only 2 intentions. One is to protect ourselves, from pain, trying to get love and avoid pain with various forms of controlling behavior. That's what we learn to do in the wounded self. The other is to open to learning about loving yourself and sharing your love with others, and open to learning about how you're treating yourself. So let's say that you breathe in and you're feeling anxious. Well, loving yourself means that you want to know what you're doing. You're asking, well, how am I treating you? What am I doing? What am I telling you from my wounded self that's causing this anxiety or depression or whatever? We're taking responsibility. We're open to learning from our feelings. This is the basis of loving yourself, is being open to learning from your feelings and being open to learning with your guidance. Because in step 3 of inner bonding, we're going into how we're treating ourselves and what the beliefs are, because all these beliefs are stored in the wounded self, and we're treating ourselves badly from those beliefs. And so we go deep inside to what those beliefs are. And then we open to learning with our higher guidance. And we ask what's true and what's loving. And then we take a loving action. And it could be all kinds of things. It could be speaking your truth with somebody. It could be looking for a new job. It could be getting more exercise or eating better. It could be getting more sleep. It could be having more rest time, developing a hobby, discovering your passion. I mean, these are all loving actions. And we don't know until we go to our guidance what would be loving to me. I encourage people to ask all day, even if they don't feel connected to a source, just ask the question, what would a loving adult do right now? What would a loving adult do right now? What's in my highest good right now? And then do it. And you'll be amazed if you really are open to learning and you ask that question. You're going to get answers no matter what you believe about spirit. If you're really open to learning, you're going to get answers as to what would a loving adult do right now. Now, see, when I had my first child, I've got 3 kids, and I was an only child, so I had no idea how to be a parent. But I didn't realize that I was asking that question. When one of my kids was crying or upset, I would just say, what do I do? What would a loving parent do right now? And I got answers, and I didn't realize that I was getting them from my guidance because I didn't have that connection, or I didn't think I did at that time. But I got answers, and a lot of parents do that. What do I do right now? How do I help my child? We do the same thing for the inner child.
So I love that. And because you've expressed that you didn't have that growing up, it's not like those answers are coming from the database of your conscious collected memories, right? So
No,
something is coming in. And as you say, people can think whatever they want to think about spirit or spirituality, and you don't have to have any practice or way. You can just be asking questions. And I think the absolute gold of this is if you are willing to learn, and it's the willingness to learn. Because if we're
yeah,
asking from a position of, I'm never heard and I'm not going to get any answers and there's nothing out there for me and I don't know what to do, that lack of willingness to be open often shuts
right.
us down.
That's
We're
right.
too busy in that noise, right?
Yeah, and then
Um,
it's actually the first step of inner bonding is being willing to
okay.
feel your feelings, being willing to learn, choosing that willingness.
Okay, so let's talk through those. We've talked about them many years ago when we first connected up, but remind me, we've got step one, willingness to learn
Well, it's and feel your feelings, willingness to feel
and
your
feeling.
feelings and learn from them. Step 2 is, choosing the intention to learn consciously and
Mhm.
inviting the beautiful qualities of spirit, the love, the compassion, the strength, the wisdom, the courage, the truth of spirit into your heart. And then step 3 is going in to see, how am I treating myself? What am I
Yes.
doing? How am I abandoning myself that's causing anything other than peace inside? And that's the time to do it. Anything other than peace, there's something to attend to. And then when we find out what we're doing, we go deeper. Why am I doing that? What's my belief? And we discover that. And then step 4, we open to our higher guidance. What's the truth about any of these beliefs and what would be loving to us? What's in our highest good? Step 5 is we take that action that we're guided to take. And step 6 is we go back in to see how we feel. And if indeed we've taken a loving action, we're going to feel relief inside. That lets us know that we
Mm,
have indeed taken a loving action.
I
And
love
so
that.
what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how to access that spiritual guidance, because
Yes, please.
yeah, so many people don't realize how very easy it is. Spirit exists at a higher frequency. We exist at a lower frequency, so we can see each other. If we were like spirit, we would be vibrating too fast to see each other. And so in order to access spirit, we have to raise our frequency. And there's 2 major things that we need to do to raise our frequency. One is we have to be in a very deep intention to learn. We have to really want to learn to take care of ourselves, to take responsibility for ourselves, to really learn about how to love ourselves. And so making that choice in step 2 will raise your frequency. I really want to learn to love myself and to love others, but it has to start with ourselves. We can't really love others if we're abandoning ourselves.
Mhm.
And then the second is the frequency of the body. And so if we're eating junk food and sugar and taking drugs and I mean, some people have to be on medication, but they can still raise their frequency. But if we're, eating factory farm foods and foods that are sprayed and just junky stuff and a lot of sugar, our frequency is too low. The body can't handle all that. And so the other way of raising the frequency is to eat clean, eat like people did 200 years ago before there was all this junk. And it took me a while to put that together because I started eating really well in my early 20s because I was a sickly kid. And so I was eating really, really well. I still wasn't connecting to guidance. And then spirit brought in inner bonding, and I realized, wow, this intention to learn is really, really powerful. And as I opened to learning, bam, I was able to connect to my guidance for the first time. And I thought it was just opening to learning. But then a lot of my clients couldn't do it. And then I realized, oh, it's also the physical body. It's also the food that I've been doing all those years because I've been eating all organic for now, I think 62 years. And so that's a long time. And so I was automatically in a higher frequency. And as soon as I opened to learning, I was just able to access easily. And so now I realize I finally realize I have to teach people not only to open to learning, but to take care of their body, to eat well, whatever that is for them. I mean, I don't teach a particular way. It can be whatever is right for them, but still it has to be clean. And so
Mm.
people find that if they're eating well and they're opening to learning, that they start to access information quite easily. And what I have found over these years is that it gets easier and easier. It develops. I hear so much now. When I work with people, I hear my own guidance, I hear their guidance, I hear a lot of guidance during the day. I just have to ask, and sometimes it's there without asking, and it's just amazing. It's so amazing. We are never alone. And when you
Mm.
really learn to raise your frequency, you know you're never alone. And that's just fantastic.
Mm. That is it is just there are just no words for the recognition when you deeply know and you deeply know in every part of your being that you're not alone.
That's right.
That there's
That's
just
right.
nothing like that because there ceases to be a need to fill yourself up from outside in
Yeah.
this sense of I can't possibly ever be alone, which is a beautiful recognition. I appreciate you sharing, particularly about the clean eating part, um, because I always found it fascinating looking at all the different rituals and ways and suggestions people have about how to be spiritually connected. And I think what I've learned on my own journey that I resonate with yours is that we're subject to our physicality as long as we're here in the body and this three-dimensional world, and we have to work with it in a way that we can have that connection to our origin and our natural talent, right, to
Right.
receive this wisdom. So I don't think there is a way around it. We all know if we load ourselves with lots of sugar or lots of alcohol or lots of caffeine or lots of things that aren't good for us, we don't feel great, we feel heavy. And if that's how you feel in your body, imagine what that's doing to our level of consciousness. So I
That's right.
appreciate that. Yeah. Um, the other thing I want to ask you is when you bring someone in to do this work, this 6-step process, and you are enabling them to understand how to self-heal these shame, guilt, anxiety, depression, all these loneliness, self-abandonment, in order to have this self-love experience, this deeper spiritual connection, this peace. How common is it that it is extremely uncomfortable for people, that it triggers them up when they have to sit with themselves? And the notion of I need to turn loving attention on myself, because I've had people even say, I understand that, but I just can't even like to even sit with myself and try to turn loving attention on myself. I understand it theoretically, but physically, I feel no love for myself. Like I'm that in self-loathing because that's
Yeah.
all I've been given from other people. Please share what you would say to someone in that situation.
Yeah, so what I do is I help them become aware of that wounded self because we all developed this ego wounded self. We had to. It was part of our survival, and it came into being in order to have control over getting love and avoiding pain and feeling safe. And most of us have been operating from that. It's actually in the lower left brain, in the fight or flight mechanism, that the wounded self resides. And this is where all the fears and false beliefs are. So when people start to do like an inner bonding process, this this part of us says, oh no, 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 no. I've kept you alive all this time. I keep you safe. I'm in control here, and we don't want to go there. That's dangerous. And so there's a resistance that comes up because of this wounded self. And so I help people become aware that this is programmed. This part of us is deeply programmed. And I also teach a trauma release process called the emotional freedom technique. Many people know that. It's a tapping on the endpoints of acupuncture meridians. It's very powerful in releasing false beliefs. And so I will help them to release the belief that it will be dangerous for them. They're going to get too hurt if they
Here's the
do.
answer. Perfect.
Yeah. And also they have false beliefs about what's selfish. You know, it's selfish to take care of myself. It's and I was told as I was growing up that if I did anything for myself instead of did what other people wanted me to do, I was selfish. And so it's very important for people to deal with that false belief. And I teach them that selfishness is when you expect other people to do it for you, and you don't care about the effect your behavior has on others. Now, when I realized that it wasn't me being selfish. It was my parents, my grandmother, the people in my life who were expecting me to do what they wanted so that they would feel okay. And they didn't care about the effect their behavior had on me. And so when I realized that no, taking loving care of myself is self-responsible. In fact, if you think about if everybody in the world was taking loving care of themselves, we would have a very loving planet. It would be the opposite of selfish because when we connect with our guidance, our source of love, and we bring love in and we fill ourselves up with love, it starts to overflow and we want to share it with others. And we wouldn't have any of the problems we have in society today if people were actually operating as personally responsible, loving adults rather than from their wounded selves, which is what's creating all the racism and the wars and the sexism and the gender issues and all of that is all coming from the fear of the wounded self. Just imagine if people were really developing their loving adults, seeing their own souls, valuing themselves, they would be valuing everything on the planet, every person, every animal, the ecology of the planet. It would naturally flow out of them. So it's the opposite of selfishness.
Oh my God. I need to listen back to this 100 times. White balls. And, you know, the wounded ego self, well, my one would say, and she did say for a long time, um, no, I'm being responsible by taking care of everything out there.
Right.
That's responsible. It's irresponsible to be over here doing this. And in my community, we're predominantly women. I love all my men in the community, but we have predominantly women, and they're predominantly in the 45 to 80-year-old range, and they are predominantly looking out for other people. And so what I've noticed is there's this beautiful emergent true commitment to taking care of themselves, being responsible for themselves, being responsible and willing to learn and going within, but there's still an emotional discomfort with doing it because I have to take time for myself. I have to invest money in myself. I have to do whatever I have to do. And there's still a bit of resistance about pouring that amount of care into themselves. So I really appreciated a very clear distinction that it's like actually the opposite of being selfish
Yes, it's the
to do
opposite.
this.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
totally opposite of it.
And I love taking care of people. But before I learned inner bonding, I was a caretaker, which means I was giving to others in order to get them to like me or love me or approve of me. So giving with an agenda is not loving. Once I learned to take loving care of myself, then I found myself just giving for the joy of it, taking care of people who needed that for the joy of it, not to get anything back. So it's not that we don't continue to get joy out of giving. It's just coming from a different place without an agenda attached. And so it feels very different to others when you're giving for the joy of it rather than giving to get something back.
Love that. And something that's coming up that I'll just share, I don't know why this is coming up, but um, my my own driver to help other people and to caretake others through this work, which I've been doing for like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. I had no idea that in the process of doing that, I abandoned myself
Yeah.
in terms of, I was like, well, I had made up story that, um, it wasn't for validation or anything that I was helping, but I did genuinely love doing it, but I just stopped taking proper care of myself. And I
Yeah.
was basically, I did Dr. Brad Nelson's emotion code, and I did the kinesiology, and I got self-abuse as one of the trapped emotions. And I looked at it and it was like an unreasonable self-abusive way of working and driving yourself. And I was like, that is what I've been doing for 10 years. And
Mhm.
the end point of that was when I came back to what you've described as this being present with yourself and all the needs that you have within, my spiritual connection has become significantly clearer from now putting myself in the equation. I know there's a lot of people probably in your community and in my community that have either in helping professions or have a
Yeah.
desire to help other people, and it's a real issue to leave yourself out of the equation where you're excluded from the same amount of care and attention. So it's kind of shocking. It was shocking to me because I would have
Yeah.
put money on the fact I wasn't doing that to myself, but in fact, the irony, I was doing
Yeah.
it.
No, I was doing
Um,
the same thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think one thing I really appreciate about your work and encourage people, we're going to give them some free gifts in a moment. One thing I really appreciate about your work is that while I absolutely love therapy and I love counseling and I love people to be able to go and have these modalities, I really appreciate frameworks and techniques which self-enable people to self-heal and go away with a toolkit for their life that they can then utilize, where there's not just a dealing with the stuff at the level of the present moment and whatever's going on, but a real equipping of oneself with the techniques to then take out into their life forever, but also then to give to their children, to their grandchildren, to their friends, to their family, where we can get this technology that we're missing, that we didn't get, that we're still not
That's
adequately
right.
as a society doing it with our children, our babies, our toddlers, our 5-year-olds, our 10-year-olds, our 8. It still makes me emotionally cry inside that we don't have certain things in our schooling system yet, but it will happen. But this is the beauty of your work. So we're going to give people 2 gifts. The first one is, so this is awesome. There's a book for those of you that love to read, and then there's a webinar that they can come to participate in. So with this video, there's going to be links wherever you're watching it. You can check with the video. The first one is 6 reasons why loving yourself is essential for inner peace, joy, and loving relationships. So that's one of your many books that they can come and download. And then the second generous gift from you is a 75-minute webinar, The 3 Secrets to Loving Yourself and Others. And I had a look at that actually, and what I was fascinated with in there was you're going to talk in that webinar about the difference between getting love and sharing love, and an understanding around what that all is. And I think there's just some really good practical takeaways for people if they can come and download those on your website today. Go and take action. So thank
Right.
you so much for offering those to people. And then obviously to come and learn inner bonding. Can you also tell us, beyond the free gifts, how they can get involved in inner bonding, how you're running it now at the moment?
Yeah, so they can go to innerbonding.com. There's a free course there. There's then many paid courses. I have many books. I have a recent book that just came out this month called Lonely No More: The Astonishing Power of Inner Bonding. And so that is one way to learn it. And then I have the Inner Bonding Workbook, which if people like to work through that, is a really great way of learning inner bonding. I have a Love Yourself course, which teaches inner bonding. There's so many ways of learning inner
Okay.
bonding. And, I work with people and we have a wonderful facilitator training program. So I have many trained facilitators around the world. If people need help, there are people there who can help them. Our facilitators are
Brilliant.
very trained.
Brilliant. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, congratulations on your new book. I did not know. I'm going to go and check that out. And I will make a note of that with this video along with the free gift so that people can go and check out that latest book as well. And
That's
highly encourage people to make sure that they go through and learn that in a bonding technique. What a great technique and toolkit for their life. Thank you very much for being here and giving us your precious time. I appreciate it. I have so much love for you and your energy. You're so loving, so radiant. The energy to be with you is precious for me to have this time with you. So I'm sure everyone else probably feels the same that's watching this. So thank you so much, Dr. Margaret.
Oh, Bernadette, thank you so much. It's just a joy to spend this time with you.